John Fredericks Radio Network. Joining us now, Curtis Ellis. Curtis Ellis, Senior Policy Advisor for American First Policies, worked with the Trump administration and Department of Labor. He was on the transition team, on the campaign. He's fighting, raring to go. Curtis, great to have you back, man.
Hey, it's great to be back. Happy September. It's back to school time. We have the back to school weather. It's just wonderful.
It is so good, right? Everybody's going back to school. And, you know, I sent a tweet out this morning when I got up. What a great day it is in America today, where after Labor Day, September 3rd, there are a record number, a historical record number of Americans today getting up and going to work. A record number of Americans getting up, going to the job, getting a paycheck, going to work. Isn't that a great thing, Curtis?
It is. It is a great thing. And I tell you, these bedwetters on Wall Street ought to be looking at that when they say they want certainty. They want certainty. I don't know what to do with the market. A record number of Americans getting up, going to work. That means they have money to spend to buy the products that these businesses are selling. So they should be happy about that.
Wow, it's going to be a lot of fun. Curtis, this campaign with his number of jobs, this booming economy, and like you said, the bedwetters on Fox Business News and everything else talking about inverted yield curves or other nonsense. Nobody even knows what the hell an inverted yield curve is, and it's like one indicator of 50, and all of a sudden that is gloom and doom. You know why, Curtis? Because they want cheap labor from China, they want cheap goods, cheap products, and they want the same nonsense that has been driving U.S. jobs out of the U.S., destroying our factories and our companies. They know Trump is winning, and they simply want cheaper stuff to get bigger bonuses. And the one argument, Curtis, that I keep bringing up that nobody talks about with these tariffs with China is the ultimate goal, which is to bring back our supply chain to the United States, right?
Exactly right. Exactly right. Make it in the United States. You'll be better off. Everybody will be better off. That's part of the argument that everybody's missing here. Is the goal here is to make it in the United States. If more of our goods are made here, that means more people will be working and earning money and having the money to buy the things that we make, and that's good for everybody. This international specialization of labor is a false god. Mm-hmm. It's a false doctrine. It doesn't work. It works for the people on top who get cheap labor over there in China and then sell it for big money over here, or cheap labor in Vietnam to make your Nike shoes and then sell your Air Jordans for $200. I mean, come on. We remember when Keds were like $20. I mean,
unbelievable, right?
That was a perfectly good sneaker, but you didn't make perfectly good, exorbitant profits on $20 Keds that were made in the United States. So,
okay, so now we're fighting the Wall Street Journal, the Lower Manhattan propagandists, Goldman Sachs, Fox News, Neil Cavuto. What's the deal?
Well, the deal is these people, half of them have lost sight of the big picture, right, and of what's going on here, and the other half are willfully ignorant. Look, Wall Street Journal, I can't speak to their editors. I don't know what's on their mind. They just want what's good for Wall Street, and what's good for Wall Street is not necessarily what's good for America. People like Neil Cavuto really ought to know better. Let's get right down to brass tacks, John. China is not our friend. It's a criminal enterprise. This is not a country that we should be doing business with at all. Did we locate our supply chains in the Soviet Union? Mm-hmm. Did we buy stuff, try to invest and build factories in Joseph Stalin's Soviet Union? Mm-hmm. No. Nikita Khrushchev came to the UN and said, "We will bury you." That's what he said to the United States and to mm-hmm. the West. We, the communist world, will bury you. The Chinese are smart enough not to say that. Instead, they smile and they say, "We are your friends." But what they want to do is bury us. I just saw this movie over the weekend. They force women to have abortions They abort babies in the 9th month and then kill them. They do this as a matter of policy, and then they run this international human trafficking ring where they take babies from families and then sell them to the state-run orphanages for $200 a baby, and the orphanages then put them up, these so-called orphanages, because these children are not orphans, put these children up for adoption and sell them to families in Europe and America for $25,000. This is human trafficking on a global scale. This is what the Communist Party of China does. The whole thing is a scam to make money. I was just reading last night the China Law Blog. China Law Blog. Check it out, folks. It's lawyers who do business in China, and they're telling everybody of all the scams that are being run in China. It's an endless list, and it escapes me why anyone would want to do business. Any company would want to do business in China. The whole place is a scam. It's a criminal enterprise. It's like the mafia. It's like Murder Incorporated.
Exactly.
That's what we're talking about here, folks. It's not about the price of socks or shoes at Walmart. It's not about a 10% tariff on a T-shirt. I mean, come on. Let's get a grip.
Well, it is. Look, they've been stealing our stuff for 50 years. This is the first president that stood up for them. We've had this conversation, Curtis, before. You've got Democratic candidates chomping at the bit, holding press conferences saying, elect me, and all the tariffs will go away, and it'll go back to the way it was. You can keep stealing our jobs, stealing our intellectual property, and stealing everything in sight. It's okay. We can go back. I mean, it's fascinating to me how all the Chinese are going to do is wait this election out. That's why I doubt you're going to get an agreement, because if you're the Chinese government, now you got to deal with the Hong Kong situation. I'm going to get to that in a second. But why would you make a deal with Trump if you think he's going to lose?
Exactly, and they're not. They're not going to make a deal. There will be no deal.
Right.
There will be no deal. So all these people saying, "Oh, business uncertainty, the markets are trembling because of uncertainty." I'll give you some certainty right now. There will be no deal. China is a thug regime that we should not be doing business with. These tariffs are not going away. So there's your certainty. Get out of China. Come back to the United States. Employ Americans, not Chinese slave labor. And not slave labor in Vietnam, another communist dictatorship. Okay, Vietnam's not trying to build an army and a navy and a nuclear missile force, but that's not where you should be investing either. You should be investing in the United States. There is no reason everything that's made in Vietnam or Indonesia or go through the whole alphabet list of the United Nations countries, there's no reason most of that could not be made right here in the United States.
You're
Henry
on the John
Ford
Fredericks
figured it
Radio
out a
Network.
long time ago.
Trucking the truth
Pay
across
people
America.
enough to buy the things they make, and you create a market, a mass market, as well as mass production.
Exactly. We're with Curtis Ellis, Senior Advisor, America First Policies, also Chairman Emeritus of the American Jobs Alliance, and former official in the Trump administration in the Department of Labor. Curtis, let's get to a couple things here. As I agree with you, there will be no deal on China because they, as you said, they're a thug regime. And but I want to get to three things, and I'm going to start with the fourth biggest lie ever: that the trade tariffs with China will cause inflation, and it will be a tax on consumers like a hidden tax. Okay, biggest lie number 4 ever. How long has this been going on? Inflation, zero. Why?
Right. We have 2 years of data to show there is no inflation. 2 years we've had these tariffs in place. Every time they keep saying, it's a tax on consumers. There's no inflation at the wholesale level, at the retail level. Number one, the Chinese have been devaluing their currency. Number two, American importers call up the factory in China and say, you're going to eat this, right? And they say, yeah, because the guy in China, the factory in China, has got the Communist Party boss saying, you better keep your people employed. You better keep pumping out orders to the dock, to the export dock there, and fill up those ships. And by the way, if you have to cut your prices, the central government will give you a check to make up the difference. That's the reality. That's not in the textbooks that Neil Cavuto and these other people were given when they went to Yale or Harvard or Dartmouth or the community college 30 years ago. Didn't talk about Chinese government subsidies.
Right.
That's not in what Adam Smith or Ricky Ricardo or David Ricardo wrote about. So they don't know that, and they just know something they read in a book. They don't look at reality. So that's why there's no inflation, because the Chinese government is subsidizing its imports.
Right.
And that's illegal. They shouldn't be doing that. How can we compete? Our government does not subsidize our factories, yet we're expected to compete against a country whose government subsidizes its factory.
So every
much
time
for free market economics.
Every time we increase the tariffs, the Chinese government increased the subsidy to overcome the tariff in order to keep dumping goods in the United States and keep being able to sell their product, because they have to employ all these Chinese. If they don't, they're going to have the same thing in Beijing they have in Hong Kong. So this is why this is a battle that Trump can't lose, right?
Right. That's right. That's right.
So that brings us to Hong Kong. Now we're starting to see little, shall we say, glimpses. Those old enough to remember this, like you and I, we're about the same age, starting to have glimpses of Tiananmen Square, right? Every day you're getting a little more crackdown. It's been very gradual. Now they're controlling what's being said. They're controlling the chief executive there, what she says, right? Every day there's more. We're going from water guns now to rubber pellets, right? I mean, people start to get jailed. What's going to happen?
The police are going on trains. The riot police are boarding trains and indiscriminately spraying people who are trying to leave the protest, indiscriminately spraying people with pepper spray and beating them with their nightsticks. And the police are using provocateurs to throw firebombs, so they have a pretext for then dispersing the rioters, right? The protesters are peaceful, but the police are disguising themselves as protesters and then instigating violence so that there can be a bigger crackdown. And that's what we're moving towards. October 1st is the anniversary of the revolution, of the Communist Revolution, the anniversary of the Communist Party seizing power in China. I expect to see some type of big blow-up by then. They can't have this going on for their big anniversary party, 70th anniversary. So it's ugly, and this is what it's amazing. We have the people of Hong Kong standing up for freedom, for liberty. When Hong Kong was handed over, when the British handed over their colony, their former colony of Hong Kong, handed over to Beijing, Beijing promised that Hong Kong would maintain its system for 50 years. And this is yet another example of the Communist Party of China breaking its promises. It breaks every promise. It lies, it cheats, it steals, and it breaks all of its agreements. And this is yet another one, because they tried to pass a law saying people arrested in Hong Kong could be extradited and put on trial in mainland China under the communist system. And that's what spurred all these protests, because the people of Hong Kong understood this was the end of their independent system under British rule of law. It would then come under communist rule of law, which is no rule of law. And we can't just sit by and let this happen. We have to give them our moral support, and it's time to say, why are we doing business with this communist regime, basically, that's out to destroy Western values, Western way of life, everything we believe in.
Oh, you're so right, Curtis. And we haven't had John in a couple of weeks because I know you've been traveling like a madman all over the United States trying to get USMCA done. Can you give us an update on that?
Yeah, the USMCA, the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement, I've been traveling with Vice President Pence in New Mexico, in South Carolina, elsewhere, as he's making the case, we're making the case. It's time to do this. Look, we've got to focus on China, and the Mexico and Canada are our two largest trading partners. This agreement is a update of NAFTA, which was a disaster.
Mm-hmm.
It fixes the worst parts of NAFTA,
mm-hmm.
and one of the and it's time to get it done. What's holding it up is politics.
Right.
The Democrats don't want to give President Trump a victory, even if it means holding up what's good for America. They're looking at it as giving Trump a victory. They need to look at it as giving America a victory and giving America a better trade deal for American workers, for American business, for American farmers and ranchers. And it's their objections, the Democrats' objections to it are spurious. They're made up. They're phony. They don't want to admit that what they're doing is they're playing politics with the well-being of America. There's provisions in there, by the way, which say that Mexico and Canada cannot make a trade deal with China
right.
unless the United States approves. We need to get this done so we can focus on the big picture, the main event, and the main event is China. And if we can't even get a deal done with Mexico and Canada because the Democrats are so craven and such political animals, it's really disgusting.
Well, their inaction is hurting American farmers. It's hurting dairy farmers. It's hurting loggers. It's hurting everyday American citizens that need this deal made because it's a better deal, and they're willing to sacrifice their livelihood to not give President Trump a political victory, right?
That's
now,
right. You ought to talk to Abigail Spanberger over there in Virginia 7.
Yep.
What does she have to say about this?
Well, I talked to Bobby Scott as well, and Bobby Scott's position, who's my congressman, was, I don't know what to vote for because I don't have a bill. Nobody's giving me a bill. Well, it's nobody's giving you a bill because your leadership will not give you one. That's why there's no bill, right? And they're trying to tack things on like border security beds and whatever that has nothing to do with it, which is what the Democrats always do. Remember, when the Democrats want something done, they scream about, I want a clean bill, until they don't want something done. And then there isn't a clean bill. They tack all this crap on it, which is, by the way, the same thing going to happen with any potential compromise on guns, Curtis. It's impossible to get it done because whatever the president proposes, the Democrats can't help themselves but to tack 18 things on them, and then it's going to collapse.
Right. And, they're saying, the USMCA, it gives too much protection. We don't like what it does to pharmaceuticals, to prescription drugs. It's going to drive up the cost of prescription drugs. And not to get too much in the weeds here, but just show how phony their objections are. Under this agreement, the patents for this new class of drugs, the breakthrough treatments that will save lives, there will be a 10-year patent protection on these drugs, right? And the Democrats say, that's going to drive up the cost of drugs. Well, the first piece of legislation that allowed for 10-year protection for this class of prescription drugs, you know what it was? It was Obamacare. The Affordable Care Act gave drug companies 10 years of patent protection on this class of drugs. When Obama said it, it was fine. Now that it's in the USMCA, no, that's terrible, horrible, we can't allow that to happen. I mean, that shows how phony their objections are. It's just pure BS. And it's disgusting. I'm sorry.
No, you're the man. Look, it's good to have you on. And sorry we haven't been able to hook up. We'll get back on our weekly schedule. Curtis Ellis, you've been traveling all over the U.S. We're going to be in Fayetteville for the President's Rally on Monday. We hope to see you there. If not, we'll get you live a couple weeks here. And we're looking forward to our trip to Fayetteville on Sunday night, going to that rally there.
All right.
NC9. John Fredericks Radio Network. Thanks for being with us.